They crossed a world that no longer exists. Thousands of years before Rome, before Egypt raised its pyramids, before the first written word, a small group of humans walked out of Asia and disappeared into an unknown world. For centuries, no one knew where the first Americans truly came from. But today, buried inside the DNA of Native American people, scientists have found something that has stunned the entire world of genetics. For more than a century, one mystery obsessed scientists. Who were the first Americans? And where did they come from? When Europeans arrived in the Americas in the late 1400s, they encountered something astonishing. A continent already filled with civilizations, not a few scattered tribes, but entire nations, massive trade networks, complex religions, advanced agriculture, great cities. From the Aztec Empire, to the Maya, to the Inca, to thousands of indigenous nations across North and South America. Human beings had been living in the Americas for an incredibly long time. But how long, and how did they get there? Early theories were bizarre. Some believed Native Americans descended from the lost tribes of Israel. Others claimed they came from Atlantis. Some even suggested ancient Egyptians crossed the Atlantic Ocean. Most of these theories were driven not by evidence, but by the refusal to believe indigenous Americans had built their civilizations independently. Then science began pointing somewhere else entirely. Asia. Specifically, Siberia. The cold, unforgiving northeastern edge of Asia. During the Ice Age, this region looked very different. Sea levels were dramatically lower because massive amounts of water were trapped inside glaciers, and between Siberia and Alaska, a giant landmass emerged. Scientists call it Beringia. This was not a tiny bridge. At its peak, Beringia stretched nearly 1,000 miles wide. It contained grasslands, rivers, animals, and entire ecosystems. Humans lived there. They hunted mammoths. They survived brutal winters. They adapted to conditions that would kill most people today. And sometime between 15,000 and 25,000 years ago, some of them crossed into North America. They had no maps, no written language, no idea what waited ahead, only curiosity, survival, and movement. The descendants of those travelers would eventually populate 2 entire continents. But as scientists would later discover, that was only the beginning of the story. In the early 21st century, a revolution transformed archaeology forever. Ancient DNA analysis. For the first time in history, scientists could extract genetic material from ancient bones and compare it directly with living populations. Suddenly, the dead could speak. Researchers sequenced genomes from ancient human remains, discovered across North and South America, and what they found confirmed a major truth. The first Americans were closely related to ancient peoples from Siberia and East Asia. But the deeper scientists looked, the stranger the story became, because Native American ancestry was not simple, it was layered complex, a mosaic formed over thousands of years. Scientists began tracing something called mitochondrial haplogroups. These are inherited genetic signatures passed from mothers to their children. Most Native Americans belong to 5 major haplogroups, A, B, C, D, and X4 of them. A, B, C, and D are clearly connected to Asian populations. That made sense, but haplogroup X created confusion because it also appears in parts of Europe and the Middle East. Some fringe researchers claimed this proved Europeans had reached America thousands of years before Columbus. But modern genetic analysis revealed something far more interesting. Haplogroup X did not come from Europe to America. Instead, both Europeans and Native Americans inherited it from a much older ancestral population that once lived in Central Asia, long before borders, long before race. DNA was exposing something profound. Human history was never isolated. Populations mixed constantly, migrated constantly, separated and reunited over immense stretches of time. And then, in 2015, scientists made a discovery. Nobody expected a discovery so strange that it shocked the world of genetics. In 2015, researchers from Harvard Medical School published a groundbreaking study in the journal Nature. The team was led by geneticists Pontus Skoglund and David Reich. Their goal seemed straightforward: to better understand Native American ancestry. But hidden inside the DNA of certain indigenous Amazonian groups, they found something impossible: the Suru, the Karashiana, the Xavante. These indigenous peoples carried a faint genetic signal that did not match ordinary East Asian ancestry. Instead, it matched populations from Australia, Melanesia, and the Andaman Islands. On the opposite side of the planet, scientists called this mysterious ancestry. Population Y, named after the Tupi word Ipiku Ra, meaning ancestor. The implications were staggering somehow. Thousands of years before recorded history, a population related to Aboriginal Australians or Melanesians had left traces of their DNA in the Amazon rainforest. How was that possible? Scientists still debate the answer. One theory suggests an extremely early migration moved along the Pacific coastline, traveling through island chains and coastal routes before eventually reaching the Americas. Another possibility is that ancient Siberian populations were already more genetically diverse than scientists previously realized, and one branch carried ancestry connected to Australasian peoples. What makes the mystery even more extraordinary is that this Australasian signal appears only in certain Amazonian populations. It largely disappeared elsewhere, meaning an entire ancient population may have been absorbed, replaced, or lost to history, except for a few surviving fragments hidden inside human DNA. Think about that. Real people once made these journeys. They had languages, families, beliefs, dreams. They crossed unimaginable distances in a prehistoric world, and they left behind almost no trace, no cities, no books, no monuments, only genetics, a whisper from deep time. Today, scientists believe the peopling of the Americas happened in multiple waves, not one migration, but several. The first and largest wave created the ancestral population of most Native Americans alive today. These people crossed Beringia during or shortly after the Ice Age, then spread with astonishing speed throughout North and South America. Within only a few thousand years, humans had reached environments ranging from Arctic tundra to tropical rainforests to the mountains of Patagonia. The second major migration involved the ancestors of Naden-speaking peoples, including groups connected to the Navajo and Apache. Their DNA suggests a later arrival into North America, distinct from the first wave. The third major migration involved the ancestors of modern Inuit and Yupik peoples. They entered Arctic North America only around 4,000 to 5,000 years ago. Genetically, they remain the closest indigenous Americans to modern Siberian populations. And beyond all of this, the mysterious Population Y signal still remains unresolved, which means the story is still incomplete. Every year, new discoveries reshape the timeline: ancient footprints, stone tools, human remains, DNA recovered from caves and frozen soil. The deeper science goes, the more complicated humanity becomes. But one thing is increasingly clear: the first Americans were not primitive wanderers stumbling accidentally into a new world. They were extraordinary survivors. Explorers, adaptable beyond imagination. They crossed continents without metal tools, without modern navigation, without written maps, and they succeeded. Today, their descendants continue to preserve languages, traditions, and identities that stretch back thousands of years. And modern genetics does not diminish those identities, it deepens them. Step back for a moment. Look at the larger picture. Somewhere around 60 to 70,000 years ago, a relatively small population of humans left Africa. Every person alive today descends from them. Over thousands of years, humans spread across Earth, into Europe, into Asia, into Australia, into Siberia, and eventually into the Americas. Science has confirmed it repeatedly, but what truly matters is what that connection reveals about all of us. That beneath every border, every language, every culture, every difference in appearance, humanity shares one origin. The ancestors of indigenous Americans were once Asian. The ancestors of Asians were once African. Every human story is connected, and the farther science advances, the more impossible it becomes to deny that truth. The first Americans came from Asia, but the full story is far stranger, and far more extraordinary than anyone once imagined. Multiple migrations, ancient Siberian hunters, mysterious Australasian ancestry hidden in the Amazon, entire populations lost to history except for faint echoes in human DNA, and the story is still unfolding. Every genome sequenced, every archaeological discovery, every ancient bone recovered from ice or cave or desert adds another sentence to the oldest story humanity has ever told. Music builds to final crescendo. The Americas were not discovered in 1492. They were discovered tens of thousands of years earlier by people with no maps, no compasses, no engines, only courage, curiosity, and the unstoppable human desire to see what existed beyond the horizon. Their descendants are still here, and their DNA carries the proof.